Hey everyone, and welcome, hopefully back to the channel. If not, and this is your first time seeing any of my videos, this is not the video that you want to start on. I think clearly the spreadsheet in the background is a good indicator of that. If you've never been to my channel, please follow the link in my description or check out the link that I'm going to post up here. I created my own golf launch monitor at home. I sourced the parts and wrote the code from the ground up. This has been a project of mine for over a year and a half, and I'm finally at the point where I'm showing all of you on YouTube. So if you haven't seen those videos, check out the very first video and the other ones in that playlist before watching this. This is not going to make a lot of sense to you if you don't know what I'm doing. So my reason for making this video, I've gotten a lot of feedback, a lot of questions, because of mainly my first video, a lot of interest. I've gotten a lot of interest in it. And the number one question has been, is it accurate? How do you know? So we're going to go into that. How's it accurate, or how do I know it's accurate? Well, let me start by saying that my number one goal has been accuracy. I don't care if I ever get it done. If it's not accurate, there's no point in making this. I've been a scratch golfer for 20 years, and the whole point of this was to make something that I could use to improve my game, um, and take those learnings to the real world, to the golf course. If I can't do that, this whole thing is for naught. So accuracy has always been the priority, and to the point where I have had stretches where I've given up on it for weeks or even months at a time because I got hung up on something where the accuracy just wasn't to the level that I needed it to be, and I couldn't find a solution. But thankfully, I was able to get past those problems to where it is now. I'm sure it's not perfect, and I can always continue to improve it. But in my opinion, it's at the point where a good golfer can rely on this. So what did I do to ensure it was accurate? Well, first off, every shot that gets hit on my monitor, there's a little video that gets saved. I can go back and review those videos, and it's laborious, but if I don't want to rely on code and automation, I can actually pixel count and calculate a lot of the information that's required. Ball speed, vertical launch angle is quite obtainable just with some simple math. Spin axis and spin rate, not necessarily the case, but with a little bit of processing, I can get some good information and actually create some graphics that really help me check the intermediate steps of my code. Basically, it's just a sanity check. I can take a look and, if everything's lining up, yeah, it's very obvious when it's good and when it's bad. So I check that all the time, and my goal is like 99% of the time it needs to work. And then finally, for horizontal launch angle, which is particularly difficult with a front-facing monitor, for about 2 weeks, I had an overhead monitor, so I got several hundred videos of shots, and I went through and tediously compared my numbers that the launch monitor generated to the numbers that I was calculating from that overhead, and I was seeing results well within a quarter of a degree, often better, sometimes, outside that quarter degree, but like generally speaking, on shots of deviation less than 6 degrees, let's say, within a quarter of a degree, I was seeing consistently, very consistently. So, yeah, hopefully, through these videos, I'll start to be able to, quantify the accuracy for you a little bit. And I'm sure I'll learn some things along the way. And I did learn some things in this video that I'll take back to improve the monitor. So this data, I visited a local facility that had some Trackmans set up. Inside, That's a very important point. This was done inside with a Trackman. I set up my unit, and I was able to hit shots on the Trackman and my unit simultaneously. So I have paired data for about 100, oh goodness, I bet you I have over 110 shots here where I have data on my monitor and a Trackman. Now, I think it's really important to note a few things. First off, Trackmans are excellent, excellent tools outside. And they're great inside too. Let's not kid here. It's a great tool. But it shines outside. Indoors is not where a Trackman does its best work, particularly on spin rate and spin axis. Radar-based monitors struggle inside. That's not, you know, I'm not saying anything new. And if you're familiar with launch monitors, that's just something that happens to the point where Titleist actually created a ball called the RCT. It's a Pro V1 with special, with I believe with metallic webbing under the cover that helps radar signals bounce back, so it makes it easier for a Trackman to detect spin. Unfortunately, I did not have those balls. I just couldn't get them on short notice. Their own online order around here. So in the future, I would love to go back to this facility with those balls and see if the spin numbers, and for matter of it, any of or perhaps all of these numbers might improve from the Trackman. So that's a really important thing to consider. You have to take these results with a grain of salt, but I think that we're going to prove that the Trackman does work good inside, but also prove that mine works, it's keeping up with it in a lot of ways. The other important points to make here is that the Trackman I did not set up. It was set up by the facility, and I found that it wasn't aligned down the mat. So the horizontal, what was 0 was not straight down the mat. It was aimed a little bit to the left, I think resulting in basically a straight shot was reporting a little bit right. So that's important to notice, and I do a correction on some data later in the video. What you're going to see originally is what the numbers you're going to see here are all raw data, so uncorrected. But just keep in mind, horizontal launch angle is going to look different. The numbers won't be the same, not off the bat at least. Secondly, vertical launch angle, because I calibrated my unit to a laser line straight down the middle of the hitting strip. So that caused the horizontal to be out relative to the Trackman, but also the mat was highly, highly worn down. So when I calibrated my unit, I use a calibration board. This is a temporary thing. It'll be simpler once I get this thing, to final phase of its build in an actual package. But for now, I use a calibration board, and that calibration board calibrates, helps me calibrate the system just in case cameras shifted during transport, and calibrates my target line. But it also calibrates what is horizontal, what is considered horizontal, and the assumption here is that your hitting strip is level. But with the wear on this hitting strip, that wasn't the case. My board was tilted, so I was basically calibrating knowing it wasn't level. This causes elevated vertical launch angles. So that's something to keep an eye on. And again, I do a correction, but the data that you're seeing right now and for the next little while is raw data. But if you're looking at those numbers, those two launch angles, you'll notice that they're consistently off. Consistent is the key. So anyways, those are the little caveats of this test, just things to keep in mind. Now we're going to get into it. So again, Trackman, my monitor setup, simultaneous shots. I'm going to explain what's happening on the sheet, what these colors mean. This is the raw data. On the left-hand side is the Trackman. On the right-hand side is the data from my monitor, exported from GS Pro. The green, basically I had to go through my video and one by one just confirm that I had paired data. Turned to green when it was like, yep, these numbers match what I'm seeing in my recordings. This is paired data. This was the same shot. This orange yellow color, this means that Trackman was reporting an estimated value for spin. And what I mean by that, if you look over here, you can see the 7216. There's nothing special about this number. This number was reported by Trackman with confidence. This was a measured value that met Trackman's QA/QC criteria, whatever that may be. So they're reporting this as like this number should be accurate. Down here, it's difficult to see, but this number is italicized. When you see an italicized number on a Trackman, that means that it's estimated. Now, whether it just means it's calculated, but maybe not well, there might be a lot of uncertainty there, or if it's just a pure estimate based on what club you're hitting or previous shots. I don't know, but italicized means not accurate. Okay, so we don't want to compare it to that. So I highlight all the spin data that the Trackman was just not certain about. And you'll see there's a lot of them. And this is a result of being indoors. The unit's not good at calculating spin with limited ball flights. Those RCT balls could help. I've heard they really do help. So in the future, I'd love to redo this test with those balls. Spin rate clearly has not been good. And I can vouch for spin axis feeling awful and just being awful. Many, many times the Trackman just straight up did not report a spin axis at all. When it did, it was often italicized, meaning, again, an estimated or value of with a lot of uncertainty. And even when it reported a quality number, I have to say it did not feel accurate. Been scratched for a long time. I know what a big hook feels like. I know what a block cut feels like. And it wasn't even on the right planet. Like it was reporting what I thought was going to be a 30, 40 yard hook as like a shot on a rope right down the line. So spin axis, I'm not even going to bother comparing. However, I do have some things to say later about spin axis because I learned a lot about my monitor here. And I think that my spin axis numbers, I can't prove they're right, but I did gain a little bit of insight into those numbers. And I know that based on another number that I calculate, that spin axis has to be right. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. So that was a long explanation, but yellow numbers, we're not going to compare. These two right here, I'm just not including those in the data because I can't confirm the spin numbers. I bumped my webcam, shifted it, and I couldn't see the numbers to confirm. So we're just not including those values when we do actually compare data. And then finally, I had one in each session. The spin number, Trackman reported it as accurate, but it just doesn't fit the bill. Like it doesn't fit the other data. And excuse me. I'm so sorry, guys. It doesn't fit the other data. And generally speaking, my spin numbers really matched well with Trackman when it reported good values, except for these two, and it was way off. Like we're talking, let's see here, what, 50? Yeah, less than 50%. Makes no sense. So again, I'm just not going to include those. They seem really off. Yeah. Okay, so again, what I did here was I did 2 sessions where I calibrated my system, hit a bunch of shots with multiple clubs, and then I did a second session where I moved the launch monitor just a little bit, a couple inches forward, kind of realigned it and recalibrated it, and then did the same thing. Basically 2 distinct data sets, hopefully showing the same relationships was the goal. For session 1, I hit, in this order, pitching wedge, 8 iron, 6 iron, 4 iron, 3 wood drivers. In session 2, I went the other way around and worked my way down from 3 wood, 4 iron, 6 iron, 8 iron, pitching wedge. And this data has been cleaned up, or not cleaned up, but I've highlighted it in the same way as the other data. before we get into the graphs where I can really show you how the data stacked up, to one another, I mentioned before that I feel like this, in a way, really helped me gain some confidence in my spin axis, more than what I had already. Like I said, I have a back end way of doing a sanity check on spin axis, with a really nice graphic that I can draw and check when I'm debugging and working on the monitor. And that's been really invaluable. I can really get a sense of whether it's right or not, or close or not, or whatever. But this has been really interesting. So you'll see, I mentioned this already, and you'll see when I compare the graphs that when the Trackman reported accurate spin numbers, my spin number matched really well, like within 2%, which I think is fantastic. So that tells me something really, really important. If the Trackman is right, and I'm matching the Trackman, so that's really great to see two units giving the same number, which is really impressive because these are not easy numbers to obtain, right? So when they're both very similar, that gives me a lot of confidence. And I built the thing, so I happen to know how I calculate spin rate or how I get to that number. And I can't calculate spin rate without first calculating spin axis. So what does that mean? Well, if my spin rates are matching Trackman, every time it reports good data, and my spin rate can't be calculated without spin axis, spin axis then needs to be reasonably correct, and more than reasonably correct. This isn't a number you can just pull out of thin air. It's a 3D vector on a golf ball that represents the rotation axis. This has to be bang on to get reasonable rotation numbers. And the reason for that is if you're calculating how something spins around an axis, if you don't have that axis centered within the points that you're calculating your rotation on, you're going to get a lot of variance in your rotation rates from frame to frame to frame because your axis is not centered on your points. Within my code, one of the most common reasons that my monitor does a no read is, and I say most common, it doesn't happen often, but when of the occurrences, this is one of the major reasons, or one of the major places where my code basically says, no, the data is no good, we're going to stop. If when calculating spin rate, there's too much variance in the frame to frame calculations, and I do this to compare, right? I want to see them very consistent. If there's not that consistency and there's too much variance, I don't proceed with processing. I just say, no, this shot's garbage. We've made a mistake somewhere, or something went wrong somewhere. Stop. I don't want to submit this. I don't want this shot to go to JS Pro or whatever software you're hooked up to. So just to summarize that, if my spin axis is wrong, that's going to cause inaccurate spin rates, which I don't even report. But let's assume I did. You would have spin rates that don't compare well to the Trackman data that it's confident in. So by having spin rates that do align with Trackman very consistently and every time, I can confidently say that my spin axis must be correct. Otherwise, this would never be doable. So again, I can't compare them directly because Trackman did a very poor job giving me spin axis, but I gained a lot of insight into my numbers and really gave me a lot of confidence that those numbers are correct. So now that that very long-winded explanation is done with, let's compare our data. So I'm just going to slide over. I'm comparing the data now that these garbage spin rates have been removed. I'm not comparing the spin axes at all. Like I said, Trackman was struggling in a big way, and just the general feel of it, um, it rarely felt right. So let's go take a look at our data comparisons. So the first one we are going to look at is ball speed. Let's back this off of here. So I do this for all the metrics. On the left-hand side, I am plotting on the y-axis the data from my monitor, and on the x-axis the data from the Trackman. If you know anything about this style of graph, this is a really good way to compare data that should be the same. The idea being that the data obviously should match, therefore you should have a very, very strong linear trend, very strong correlation. And that's exactly what we see here. We see our slope is 0.9948. Ideally, that is 1.000, so we are 10, like we're well on our way to being extremely accurate here in terms of the relationship between the Trackman and my unit. What you will notice though, and this should be if this was done perfectly and Trackman was bang on and my unit was bang on, this line of best fit would pass perfectly through the origin, and it doesn't. Now, this graph on the right explains that a bit. This is just the points from the Trackman and mine plotted on the same chart. You'll notice that the blue dots, which are the dots from my build, are plotted above the orange, a consistent amount above the orange. So my ball speeds were coming in about 4 miles per hour too high relative to the Trackman. Maybe mine are right and the Trackman's low. I don't know. My hunch is that they are high though, and the Trackman is more correct, but I'll have to do some manual number crunching and analyzing of some of these videos to confirm that. But I will, and I will post those findings in the chat, in the comments, or in the description once I do have more information there. But really great correlation between the two units. Ball speeds are offset, but very consistently offset. So that's really great. Like that doesn't worry me at all. If I'm wrong and they are a little bit too high, it's probably just a logic or simple math error. If they were all over the place, if sometimes they were faster, sometimes they were slower by 6 miles per hour, then 2 miles per hour, and then minus 3 miles per hour, then I'd be in trouble. I would be very worried because my goal is kind of like half a mile an hour to a mile an hour. I want to be within. But again, who knows? Maybe I'm right and Trackman's wrong. Maybe I'm wrong and Trackman's right. Maybe we're both wrong. But I want to get to the bottom of this offset and see if there's some merit there. But I guess the point is there is very consistent offset, and that's the best problem to have. Of all the problems, that's the one you want, right? So ball speed. I got to give this like, I don't know, a solid A minus, maybe an A. I don't know. It's awesome. I am really happy with it. Spin rate. This is the one that I'm really excited about because, in my opinion, spin rate is the hardest one to get because, yeah, like in my opinion, you need spin axis. There's no way around that to do it properly with an optical monitor. At least there's some things you could do to like estimate it. But I don't want to estimate. I want to calculate it. I want this to be, I want this to be accurate, and I don't want any massaging or ridiculous methods used. I want to do this. I want a number crunch and be able to prove it. So we don't have a lot of data points, unfortunately, because the Trackman just didn't give us a lot of useful data. But like the first graph, this last on the left side, my data, on the bottom, Trackman data, same rule. You're looking for very linear relationship, which we see, and you want to see that trend go right through the origin, which we do. Like this is bang on. So this is really cool. This shows This means that we're getting very similar numbers on the Trackman as we are on my monitor, and we're seeing, that trend hold true through the entire data set that I could compare, just like the ball speed. Really nice, consistent results all the way through the clubs. Over here, you can actually see the overlay, and for whatever reason, Trackman indoors really likes this kind of 5 to 8,000 RPM range. Seems to, work properly in this range. And like this 6,000 RPM range, like these are like within 50, 75, maybe 100 RPM difference. And again, who's more right? That's up for debate, right? Like there's just because these are different doesn't mean mine's wrong. Doesn't mean Trackman's wrong. It just means they're different. The goal here is to see nice linear trends and reasonably similar data, right? And I think we see that here. And again, to what I was saying before, if my spin rate is this similar to a Trackman when it's reporting, quality data, I know that my spin axis has to be accurate. Otherwise, this data would not correlate. It just can't. The way that I've coded it doesn't allow it. So I need a proper axis of rotation to calculate spin rates. So if I'm getting good spin rates, I've got good axis of rotation. So that's a really good confirmation. I'm very, very excited about that. Horizontal launch angle. There's definitely more deviation here than what you've seen in the other metrics. Saying that, this is a very coarse grid. So, the scale on this is 10,000 RPM, 10,000 RPM on the spin. We're 10 degrees, minus 10 degrees, minus 10, and 10. So although it might be way off this line, that's only a degree. So this is a good example to look at. So this is plotting as 3.3 and 1.87. So that means that I reported as 1.87, the Trackman reported as 3.3. So that's a big discrepancy. But based on some of the other data being a little bit off on the Trackman, I wonder about horizontal launch angle. I really can't say. This is definitely one that is more difficult for me to pick up, but if you watch my intro putting video, you'll see that I'm more than capable of getting accurate horizontal launch angle, and I've verified this using a third camera overhead. So I do know that I can get good numbers. Were they perfect in this scenario? I can't confirm, but the general trend is linear. We are seeing really good correlation there. And generally speaking, like the differences, like this guy, 1.6 to 1.2, so that's 0.4 degrees difference. That's not bad at all. This one's a little bit further off, 5.2, 4.6, so 0.6 degrees. So, the majority of these points are probably within about half a degree of one another. And again, I had to shift this data because the two units weren't perfectly aligned. But generally speaking, pretty good results. And like I said, this is the one that my monitor is not ideal for, but I have shown in the past that it does work really well. So hopefully, yeah, this shows it does the same. And over here, just same thing, plotting them on top of one another. Generally speaking, yeah, so we got a minus 0.3, 0.12, so 0.4 degrees. So a lot of this kind of separation within half a degree. And I'll continue to improve that. And again, no guarantee the Trackman's bang on. You'll see that there's these points aren't specifically always in one direction. Sometimes the Trackman is reporting the larger launch angle. Sometimes it's me. So there's some variance there, which could be caused by either device. Really hard to say. But generally speaking, I'm pretty happy with how those data points relate. And then finally, since we're not doing spin axis, vertical launch angle. And this one, my monitor is very well suited to get this angle accurately. Again, this is shifted because I couldn't calibrate mine level. So I am aligning these by basically what my monitor reported was the angle. And yeah, what we see is some really nice agreement. However, there seems to be, right in this range, a little bit of variance. And again, that could be the Trackman or mine reporting high or low. It's impossible for me to say without doing number crunching by hand, but I will go back and take a look and see how these compare. What I really like is these two data points down here. I sculled to 3 woods and both monitors nailed it. Like, you can't be any closer than that. So yeah, that was data set 1. We'll quickly go through data set 2. I'm not going to talk like this. I'm just going to show it to you really quickly. We'll zoom in again. Oops. Okay, so ball speed. Same thing, very linear, almost right through the zero, offset by, again, approximately 4 miles per hour. You can see that in the right graph. The shot for shot, very similar, but kicked up. Who knows who's wrong? I think it's me by a little bit. I just feel like my ball speeds are coming in. They're coming in hot. I don't think I hit it as hard as it's saying. But this could be Trackman reporting low. I'll need to do some math to try to confirm. Spin rates, same result. Really nice linear trend, not a lot of variance from that line of best fit, and pretty good pointing through the origin, a little bit up on this particular one. But generally speaking, really nice looking data. What I do see is that my values tend to be a little bit high, but we're talking, 100, these are like 100 RPM. This one's a little bit bigger, probably about 200 RPM, but still well within the range. Nice and consistent over here. So that's very promising. Horizontal launch angle, very similar to the other one. I was clearly hitting it a little bit straighter overall, but there are a couple big ones. So I'd really love to look at these videos to see why. Maybe there's something that I can, take a look at, especially considering the ones that are way out. My monitor is reporting big push and big pull. But I'll be able to look at those videos, reprocess them, and kind of check the data and see if that's right, see if I'm right or the Trackman's right. So there's a couple things I've pointed out as I've gone through here that I want to look at, and I'll report back. And then vertical launch angle, great looking data. You cannot get that that's right through the origin, 0.0. Nice linear trend. Some of them are a little bit off that trend line, but overall really good. And then you compare the results, shot for shot, like really great results. All of these are by my eye, all easily within a degree. Most of these, I bet you, are within half a degree, and there's a lot that are better than that. So anyways, guys, sorry for the longest, most boring video of all time, but I think that these videos are going to be really important to prove that the monitor is working well, and I think that's the key, right? Like, correct data is everything, accuracy is everything. I don't care how cheap it is. If it's not accurate, what is the point? So I'm going to keep doing videos like this. I can't wait to get back and do the Trackman again with some RCT balls, see if I can get more spin information. But honestly, other than being able to directly compare spin axis, I got what I needed personally to confirm what I suspected. A couple things to look at. That ball speed's a little bit up. I want to look at that. There's a couple horizontal launch angles that maybe look a little bit suspect to me, that I would want to take a look at. But overall, I'm over the moon. This performed as well as I believed it could. So yeah, I hope that this convinces some of you that it's working well and accurately. And yeah, if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so, so much. I really don't think anyone's going to make it to this point. So if you actually get to this point, maybe just say it in the comments because I'll be super impressed. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for the support and all the questions. It's super cool. I actually believe that I'm going to get this thing to the end. I've had so many great people reach out to me, and I think we're going to do it. So thanks again, guys. I hope you learned something, and we'll see you soon with some actual golf. We'll take a break from the spreadsheets for a couple of videos. Thanks, everyone. Bye.